Let's go right now to Capitol Hill. We've got the chairman of the Senate Republican Conference, Senator John Thune of South Dakota. John, always great to talk to you. I want to talk to you about what happened in Paris, our battle against ISIS, and ask how in the world we've gotten to this place that we're at right now, where a so-called JV team is now terrorizing Western civilization in large parts of the Middle East. And what do we do moving forward?
Well, first off, Joe, I think how we got here is that the president's, a lot of his decisions, and obviously the political decision to completely withdraw from Iraq opened the door to ISIS. The decision not to enforce a red line in Syria has contributed to the chaos there. And so there are a lot of these decisions that are starting to compound. And I think former President Jimmy Carter maybe said it best when he said that if you look around the world today, there isn't a single place where we're better off than we were when the president took office. But, you know, we've got a situation now that we obviously have to deal with, and clearly the best way to address the Syrian refugee crisis is to defeat ISIS, because obviously until we do that, it's going to be very difficult for the Syrian refugees to be able to have a home in Syria. And that's you know, that's something that we've got to face head on. We are not going to beat these guys by containing them. We have to defeat them, and that's going to take an all-in effort by the United States and leadership from the president and a coalition of our partners, both European and in the region.
Senator Mark Halpern here. How would you rate the president's leadership since last Friday's attacks, and what would you like to see him do differently, if anything, from what he's doing in terms of leadership style and speaking to the country and to Congress?
Right. Well, you know, Mark, I think the thing that the president, and you have all described his response here in the last couple of news conferences that he's done. I mean, I would like to see him devote the same energy to attacking ISIS that he devotes to attacking Republicans. I think the rhetoric has been all wrong, considering the situation and circumstances. But frankly, what I would like to see him do is come to Congress and to work with us to address this. I mean, right now, people are drawing lines in the sand. That's not helpful. What we are seeing is that yesterday in the House of Representatives, you had 47 Democrats who joined Republicans on a piece of legislation that would deal with the Syrian refugee crisis, after many of those same Democrats heard the White House's presentation and got lobbied heavily against that very bill. And I think most of those Democrats came away from that briefing saying, we're not convinced. And in fact, one Democrat who voted for the bill yesterday described it as a modest approach. I think there are Democrats, like Republicans, who are very concerned about the threats that exist out there and the response of the administration in dealing with it.
Senator, this is Ron Fournier. You're talking about demanding an all-out effort by the United States and the president to eradicate ISIS. How many ground troops is that going to take? How long will they have to be on the ground? And in a time where we're over-deploying our troops now, where would those troops come from?
Right, Ron. I think the thing that I guess I would defer to our military leaders to exactly what that number is.
No, sir. If you're President of the United States, you're going to get a lot of conflicting advice from your military leaders. You have to make the decision. How many troops, how long, and where do these kids come from?
Well, I'm not the President of the United States, nor do I intend to be. But I do think you have to listen very carefully to your military leaders. Yes, the President's ultimately got to make that decision, Ron. But the problem we've had in the past is the President hasn't listened to his military leaders. That's one of the reasons we have the mess that we have there today. But I think it's going to be important. The U.S. is probably going to have more of a commitment there in terms of on the ground. Things we're doing in the air are not going to get the job done. But I don't think that the lead force on the ground has to be U.S., but it has to be U.S.-led. We have to be in a leadership role. We've got to be building that coalition, and I think there are folks in that region who are looking to America for leadership, who are willing to invest and put the resources and put the manpower into defeating ISIS. Everybody is going to be affected by this in a very harmful and negative way if we don't succeed in driving them out. The only way the caliphate survives is to continue to take ground and hold ground and grow recruits from not only that region but around the world.
Senator, the president said that he's not ready yet to work in a coalition with Vladimir Putin unless there's a transition process in place to get rid of Assad. Russia, of course, still wants to keep Assad in power. What would you do? Would you support working with Russia right now to defeat ISIS?
I think if the Russians come around to the view that we need to remove Assad from power, then we need to work with anybody who shares that objective. You know, clearly we are not going to succeed in the region, one, until we defeat ISIS, and two, until we get Assad out of power. Those are two objectives I think we have to, the peace-loving world is going to have to agree that these are things that are going to have to happen if we're going to see any progress, and if we're going to be able to get a lot of the Syrian people back into their country and create some sort of stability in the Middle East. And so if the Russians come to the conclusion that Assad needs to go, then sure. I mean, I think we need to work with anybody who shares that objective and is willing to, you know, to put an effort behind it.
All right, Senator John Thune, thank you as always for being with us. We greatly appreciate it and look forward to seeing you very soon.
All right, see you.
Coming up.